So it is February 2nd, 2006. And a woman named Anita Moorjani is wheeled into a prestigious hospital in Hong Kong.
Right.
And she weighs, barely 85 pounds at this point.
Just incredibly frail. Yeah.
Exactly. And she has tumors the size of lemons and some the size of golf balls, literally spanning from the base of her skull, around her neck, under her arms, through her chest, all the way down to her abdomen.
Which is just a horrific physical state to be in.
It's completely devastating. Her organs have failed, and her oncologists give her roughly 36 hours to live.
That's it. 36 hours.
Yeah, so they place her into a medically induced coma, but then 30 hours later, she wakes up.
Which is already wild.
Right, and then 5 weeks after that, doctors cannot find a single microscopic trace of cancer anywhere in her body.
It's unbelievable.
So today, in this deep dive, we are opening her actual physical 3-inch thick medical file to figure out how on earth that happened.
And we really have to start with that brutal, undeniable medical specificity. Because whatever happens next in this story, it has to contend with that absolute, documentable baseline.
Yeah, we can't gloss over how sick she actually was.
Exactly. When they wheeled her in, she was at the absolute end stage of stage 4B Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And as a science-brained person looking at the clinical details of her condition, I am just openly horrified.
It's hard to read.
It is. Her lungs were completely filled with fluid. They had to repeatedly drain them just so she literally wouldn't drown in her own body.
Right, and she had these open, weeping skin lesions everywhere.
Because her body couldn't process toxins anymore, right?
Exactly. Her kidneys had completely shut down, so the toxins were just leaking out of her skin.
That is just terrifying.
Her veins had retracted to the point where the nurses could barely even find a line to administer painkillers. The medical team is looking at a body that has essentially surrendered.
And see, when I read that kind of baseline, my immediate reaction is just total skepticism about any miraculous turnaround. I'm bracing myself thinking, okay, this is where the woo-woo starts.
Seriously, it's a natural reaction.
But before we even get to the anomaly, how does someone even end up in that extreme state? You'd assume she was, smoking a pack a day or completely ignoring her biology for decades.
Well, and that is the craziest irony here. Because Anita was doing the exact opposite.
What do you mean?
She was originally diagnosed with lymphoma at age 42. But that diagnosis came after years of living what most people would consider an aggressively healthy lifestyle.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. She was intensely into organic juicing. She took fresh wheatgrass shots every single morning.
Oh, wow.
She was on top of every anti-cancer, antioxidant supplement on the market.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second. She was doing everything medically and diet-wise, quote-unquote, right.
Right.
Supposedly building up this bulletproof immune system, and she still gets stage 4 cancer. That just feels totally counterintuitive.
It really does. But it makes sense when you look at the psychological engine that was driving all that healthy behavior.
Okay.
Her motivation wasn't health or vitality at all. It was pure terror.
Terror of what? The cancer.
Exactly. Anita had watched her best friend, Sony, and also her husband's brother-in-law, both die of cancer.
Oh, that's awful.
And she saw them undergo the absolute best medical treatments money could buy, and she still watched them deteriorate. So she became completely consumed by the fear of getting the disease herself.
So she wasn't drinking wheatgrass because she loved her body or felt good. She was drinking it because she was basically running from an invisible predator.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
It's like she was running a marathon but looking over her shoulder the entire time, just waiting for the monster to catch her.
That is exactly it. She researched everything that could potentially cause cancer. Preservatives, microwaves, plastic containers, mobile phones.
Oh man, that sounds exhausting.
She was existing in a perpetual state of intense chronic fear. And it actually went beyond just a fear of illness, too.
How so?
Well, she grew up in a culture with pretty intense gender disparities. So she felt like she constantly had to please everyone else. She was always seeking external approval.
Right.
She feared disapproval. She feared disease. She essentially just feared living.
Which honestly is terrifyingly relatable. Think about it. How many of you listening right now are currently buying organic everything, obsessing over microplastics in your water?
Yeah, checking all the labels.
Right. But you're totally stressed out and living in a constant state of low-level panic 24/7 while doing it.
A lot of people, I'd bet.
And medically speaking, we actually know what that does. When you are constantly terrified, your body is just flooded with cortisol.
Yeah, you are locked in fight or flight mode.
And what happens to the immune system when you're chronically in fight or flight? It gets suppressed.
Exactly.
If your brain thinks you're literally running from a tiger, it shuts down all long-term maintenance.
It doesn't care about tomorrow. It just wants you to survive the next 5 minutes.
Right, so it diverts all energy away from your immune system's natural killer T cells, which are the exact cells responsible for hunting down and destroying mutated cancerous cells.
Wow.
You're basically taking the security guards off the front doors to go fight a fake fire in the parking lot.
So despite all the wheatgrass and the juicing, the underlying physiological environment of her body was just incredibly toxic, driven entirely by that fear.
That is so wild.
And when she eventually did find a lump on her neck, that fear just compounded.
I can imagine.
She tried alternative therapies first, like Ayurveda, yoga, vegan diets, literally everything except conventional chemo because she was so terrified of the treatment itself.
Which brings us right back to that bedside in the ICU on February 2nd, the culmination of all that fear.
Yeah.
Her husband, Danny, and her mother are sitting beside this limp 85-pound body. It just has to be a scene of absolute despair.
It was. The oncologist actually takes Danny out into the hallway about 40 feet away from Anita's room, and he delivers the grim report. He tells him it's only a matter of hours, the organs have shut down, the body is completely malnourished.
And they can't do anything at that point, right?
No, any chemotherapy administered at this stage would just be fatally toxic because their system simply couldn't process it.
So the physical body has undeniably failed. The coma sets in, and this is where we have to wade into the near-death experience, the NDE itself.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I genuinely struggle here. Because a dying brain hallucinating from a lack of oxygen is documented science.
Oh, absolutely.
When the brain is starved of oxygen, it fires off a massive rush of endorphins and neurotransmitters as a final biological coping mechanism. People report a sense of peace or seeing a light.
Yeah.
It's an evolutionary anesthetic, so it's hard for me to just accept it as something magical.
And treating it as a biological phenomenon is a completely fair, necessary scientific pushback. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks.
But we have to look closely at the verifiable anomalies she reported from this state.
Okay, like...
While her physical body was shutting down, Anita describes experiencing this profoundly expanded awareness. She felt weightless, completely encompassed by something she described as pure, unconditional love.
Okay, but that still sounds like the endorphin rush.
Sure, but in this state, eyes closed, completely comatose, she accurately heard and later recounted the exact conversation her doctor and her husband were having 40 feet down the hallway.
Okay, see, this is where I get stuck. Couldn't Danny or the doctor have just recounted that hallway conversation to her after she woke up?
Like they were just chatting by the bed?
Yeah, like a traumatized family member sitting by the bed saying, oh, the doctor told me you weren't going to make it.
If she hadn't repeated the exact verbatim medical phrasing to the bewildered doctor before the family even had a chance to debrief her, maybe.
Wait, she told the doctor his own exact words?
Yes. And she didn't just hear the hallway conversation. In this state of expanded awareness, she, quote-unquote, saw her brother, Anoop, anxiously flying on a plane from India to Hong Kong to see her before she died.
She saw him on the plane.
She felt his panic, his urgency. She knew exactly what was happening outside the sensory capabilities of her failing biological form.
Okay, that is harder to explain away with just endorphins.
Right.
So, assuming for a moment that she genuinely experienced this consciousness entirely separate from her physical brain, what is she actually experiencing in that space? Because the medical anomaly that follows hinges on what happens right here.
Where she encounters the essence of her deceased friend, Sony, and also her deceased father.
Okay.
And this is really the pivot point of her entire existence. Surrounded by this overwhelming, unconditional love, she suddenly understands the absolute root cause of her cancer.
Which was what? That it wasn't a punishment for doing something wrong.
Exactly. It wasn't bad karma. It wasn't bad luck. She understood that her cancer was quite literally a physical manifestation of her own unexpressed power, and her intense fear turned inward.
Wow.
She realized she had never truly loved herself. She had never valued herself without attaching it to someone else's approval.
So all that people-pleasing we talked about earlier.
Right. Her entire life had been driven by trying to meet external expectations, which literally turned her own life force energy against her biology.
That is a staggering concept to sit with. that the emotional cage of chronic fear and self-rejection literally manifested as an undeniable physical cage of tumors in her body.
Yes.
So she's in this realm, she's surrounded by love, she is totally free of pain. Why on earth would she choose to come back to a dying 85-pound body covered in open sores?
Well, the truth is, she didn't want to. She explicitly wanted to stay.
I don't blame her.
But then she faces a choice. Her father communicates to her, and these are her exact words from the book. Now that you know the truth of who you really are, go back and live your life fearlessly.
Go back and live your life fearlessly, not, go back and drink more wheatgrass.
Exactly. And in that moment of profound clarity, she realizes that if she chooses to return to her physical body with this new awareness, this complete, utter absence of fear, her body will heal rapidly.
She knew that for a fact.
She knew it wouldn't take months or years. She explicitly chooses to return, knowing she's going to rewrite her biological fate.
Okay, we really shouldn't sanitize how strange this is for the listener.
No, it's bizarre.
We are asking you, listening right now, to sit with the idea of a comatose, medically terminal woman making a conscious choice in another realm to reboot her failing cellular biology.
It's wild.
It completely defies everything we are taught in pathology. But this is exactly why my skepticism officially shifts right here.
Why is that?
Because we can debate the origins of consciousness all day long, but we cannot debate what her actual verified medical records show from this point forward.
And those records are baffling. It is February 3rd. Roughly 30 hours after entering the coma, Anita's eyes flutter open.
Unbelievable.
Her family is absolutely shocked, and she immediately tells them, I'm fine. I'm going to be fine.
And doesn't she totally stun the doctor on duty, Dr. Chan?
Yes. She says, good afternoon, Dr. Chan. And he is bewildered because he'd only treated her earlier that morning while she was entirely comatose, draining fluid from her lungs.
So she had no physical way of knowing who he was or what he looked like?
None whatsoever. But the real shock is the 5-week medical timeline that follows.
Walk me through it.
Within days of her waking up, her family and the doctors noticed something impossible. The lemon-sized tumors literally start to soften.
Soften like they can feel it.
The doctors can literally feel them shrinking with their own hands.
Now I have to ask about the timeline here. Had they started chemotherapy? Because conventional medicine would just point to the drugs suddenly kicking in?
They had barely begun to administer drugs because her organs had just started functioning again.
Right.
Chemo takes time to process. And tumors of that size, in a body that compromised, they do not just vanish in days from an initial weak dose of chemotherapy.
That makes sense.
But within days, she comes off the supplemental oxygen. Her lungs stop filling with fluid.
And what about the open, weeping lesions on her skin? The ones the doctor said would absolutely require extensive plastic surgery and skin grafts.
Yeah, because her body completely lacked the basic nutrition and protein building blocks to heal itself.
Right, so what happened to them?
They healed completely on their own. No surgery required. Skin regenerating at a biologically impossible rate.
Okay, but as a hospital oncologist, you don't just walk in, look at a patient and say, wow, your skin looks great, the lumps feel smaller, you're cured.
No, of course not.
They must have run rigorous tests.
Oh, they ran grueling tests. The medical team was convinced the cancer was just hiding deeper in her system because stage 4B lymphoma simply does not vanish.
It doesn't.
So they insisted on a bone marrow biopsy, which, if you don't know, is a highly invasive procedure where they insert a thick needle into the back of your pelvic bone, the iliac crest, to extract the marrow.
Ugh, that sounds awful. And what were the results?
It comes back completely negative. No trace of cancer in the marrow.
Wow. But I'm guessing the doctor still didn't believe it.
It's not. Not at all. They insist on a lymph node biopsy next. So they send her to radiology to find a lymph node large enough to extract tissue from.
Okay.
The radiologist is staring at the scans from just 2 weeks prior, showing a lymphatic system totally riddled with aggressive cancer. And he's completely baffled. He can't even find a single lymph node on her body large enough to suggest cancer anymore.
Wait, they literally couldn't find a diseased node to even test.
Exactly. They eventually take a biopsy from a node in her neck anyway, just to be absolutely sure.
Right.
And again, completely negative. 5 weeks after entering the hospital with multiple organ failure and a 36-hour life expectancy, Anita Moorjani is declared 100% cancer-free.
It's breathtaking, truly. But even with all those hospital records, independent doctors are going to be skeptical. I know a case like this wouldn't hold water in the scientific community without fierce, independent verification.
Right. Which brings us to Dr. Peter Koh.
Who is he?
He is a highly respected U.S.-based oncologist who actually hunts down and audits cases of spontaneous remission.
Oh, perfect. So he's looking for the holes in the story.
Exactly. He heard about Anita's case and thought, I need to see the raw data. He flew all the way to Hong Kong, specifically to analyze her massive medical file.
He flew across the world just for this.
Yep. He sits down and goes through every single lab result, every blood panel, every scan, every doctor's note from her admission to her discharge.
And what does a Western-trained, skeptical oncologist conclude when faced with that actual data?
After analyzing the file, his exact reaction to her face was, "Lady, whichever way I look at it, you should be dead."
I mean, he's not wrong.
Right. And he explicitly wrote in his report that based on his clinical experience and the opinions of his colleagues, he was entirely unable to attribute her dramatic recovery to the chemotherapy.
So how did he explain it medically? If it wasn't the chemo, what was it?
He hypothesized that something non-physical, some kind of profound information, switched off the mutated genes or signaled programmed cell death.
Wait, programmed cell death, you mean apoptosis, the body's natural self-destruct sequence for cancer cells?
Exactly. Every single cell in your body has a kill switch. When a cell becomes damaged or mutates, it's supposed to trigger apoptosis and destroy itself to protect the rest of the body.
But in cancer, that mechanism is broken, right?
Aye,
The cells basically forget how to die and just keep multiplying.
you hit the nail on the head.
And the burgeoning field of epigenetics tells us that our genes aren't just fixed destiny, they're more like blueprints that respond to our environments. So Dr. Ko is theorizing that this massive psychological shift, this total eradication of fear and sudden influx of unconditional self-love, sent a completely new set of epigenetic instructions to those cells, essentially flipping the kill switch back on.
That is exactly what he's suggesting, that the sudden shift in her state of consciousness triggered a massive systemic biological response.
Oh.
Psychoneuroimmunology studies this exact link, how our emotional and psychological states directly communicate with our immune system. Anita's profound emotional shift from absolute terror to absolute peace seemed to reignite her body's natural ability to heal, telling billions of cancer cells to systematically self-destruct.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening to us right now? Let's pull these threads together, because obviously the takeaway here isn't, hey, go have a near-death experience to cure what ails you.
No, absolutely not. Anita is very, very clear about that. You do not need a near-death experience to heal.
Good.
The core takeaway from her entire medical anomaly is profoundly psychological and emotional, and it applies to how we live every single day.
It forces us to look at the massive difference between living a life just to avoid death, which is what she was doing with all the intense diets, the obsessing over toxins, the fear-based decisions.
Like wheatgrass.
Exactly. Living to avoid death versus actually living fearlessly as your true self.
Anita's story suggests that a life driven by fear, a life spent constantly shrinking yourself to meet external expectations or obsessing over worst-case scenarios, it can literally become a physical cage.
Her disease was the physical manifestation of a soul that felt worthless and terrified.
The insight here is that true self-acceptance, recognizing your own inherent value without condition, isn't just a nice spiritual concept. It is the ultimate biological reset button.
And it's crucial to note that it wasn't just positive thinking that cured her. She's very clear about that, too.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't just stand in front of a mirror forcing herself to think happy thoughts while burying her terror deep down.
Right, because forced positive thinking is often just another layer of stress. You're fighting yourself.
Exactly.
It was the complete, utter absence of fear, a state of pure being, of total surrender and self-love, rather than a state of panicked, controlling thought.
It just breaks our neat binary understanding of the physical body. We like to think of our health like an engineering problem. You break a bone, the x-ray shows it, you fix it. Right. But Anita's story shatters that mechanistic view with the undeniable, documented power of the mind and the spirit. It proves that the baseline of reality, the very cells in our bodies, might be far more responsive to our internal state than we have ever dared to scientifically admit.
It challenges us to stop fighting against the things we fear and start actually aligning with the things we love.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. If extreme chronic fear can literally manifest as an undeniable, documentable physical cage in our bodies, what subtle everyday fears are secretly running your own physical and mental operating system right now?
It's a great question.
What are you terrified of losing or failing at or not living up to that is just waiting for you to finally let it go?